Good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm
Yes.
Sujata Shankar, convener of INTACH Chennai chapter. A warm welcome to each of you here. And as we kick off the first of our Madras Day celebrations, a warm welcome to the speaker of the evening, Thirupurasundari, Sevvel, and to Mr. Jagdish, librarian at Music Academy.
Voice is not. Hello. 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 Hello.
Sorry,
Hello?
just give us a minute.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry about that. I think I went offline for a moment. Good evening and welcome to this evening as we kick off the Madras Day celebrations on behalf of INTACH Chennai chapter with a library trail of Madras. Welcome to Thirupurasundari Sevvel, who will take us today on a journey of the libraries of the city, and to Mr. Jagdish, who will sum up today's proceedings at the close of the talk. August is always a marker of the city's birth. Our city, Madras, Chennai, Patnam, however you choose to call it, has a unique identity. It is an embodiment of culture and values, and in people's memory, its heritage forms a tangible link to its past. Libraries form an important aspect of this thread, repositories of knowledge, quiet spaces that played a role in how the city developed intellectually and how it complemented and contributed to the growth of education. Today, August 12th, is observed as National Library Day, and that too has a Madras connection. The day is observed in memory of S.R. Ranganathan, who had his education in Madras Christian College and was a librarian at the University of Madras. Today, Thirupurasundari Sevvel will take us on this library trail. Thirupurasundari is an architect and urban planner trained in India, UK, and France. She runs Studio Conclave, an architectural consultancy, and Namvede Namor Namkadai, an initiative that stems from her passion for storytelling, heritage, history, and education. She curates stories, exhibitions, and workshops on social issues, heritage, personal social history, etc., and documents traditional techniques and practices in architecture. She predominantly works with artisans who work on traditional materials and techniques. Her consultancy projects for NGOs, schools, and colleges focus on the planning and building of inclusive, accessible, and safe spaces for all. She began a project in 2015, taking children on library trails with role play for them to understand the cycle of browse, borrow, read, and return, which is a connection with libraries. And today she plays a very active role in the Madras Literary Society. INTACH, as you know, is dedicated to the cause of conservation. Founded in 1984, we are on our 36th year. INTACH Chennai chapter holds programs through the year and have encompassed talks, walks, workshops for architects and corporation engineers, making documentary films, cleaning temple tanks, restoring heritage structures, as well as bringing out a heritage map of the city. We've also brought out an architectural guide, which is a guide to the heritage of Madras. And all of these, in some aspect, represent the rich and varied tapestry of our culture and heritage. INTACH Chennai chapter, through all these programs and initiatives, has been creating awareness about the cultural heritage of the city and its significance, and in many ways celebrating the city not only in August when Madras Day and Madras Week are celebrated, but right through the year. Some of the programs conducted by INTACH Chennai chapter during the Madras Week celebrations in the past few years include an exhibition of rare old maps of Madras, a hidden heritage photo contest, role play, essay, and drawing competitions on the icons of Madras by children, British photographers of the Madras Presidency, a talk on the automotive industry in Madras, heritage quizzes, heritage walks of temples and historic precincts, screening the intact documentary of Madras, and so on. This month's lineup of programs includes today, of course, the 12th, the library trail. Tomorrow, the 13th, Thursday, will be a talk by V.R. Devika on Swadeshi and Gandhi, with including its Madras connections. And on the 20th, The Temples of Madras by Dr. Chitra Madhavan. And on the 27th, Heritage of the Buckingham Canal by Venkatesh Ramakrishnan. All of these in the ensuing Thursdays. Some of the announcements before we start. I request you all to kindly stay on mute right through the program. And at the end, we will take up question and answers. And if you have any questions while the program is in progress, please type the same in the chat box and we will take the questions up at the end of the session. And if you wish to be on our mailing list and wish to contact INTACH Chennai chapter, our mail ID is intachchennai@gmail.com, and you may please get in touch with us. Welcome all to this program, and over to you, Thirupurasundari. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the introduction. and it's a pleasure to be here because every library day we made sure we took children on buses to different libraries in Chennai, and to me, to be in the cyberspace and talking about the same physical spaces each child responds to on a screen is totally different. But let me just give you a brief about how this is going to be. There are a lot of experts who have worked intensively on histories of libraries and the stories behind each of these libraries, and they have put together wonderful work. And but today, what we're going to do is more of a nostalgic line because libraries, as we see, my voice is audible. Okay, yes. So whenever we talk about libraries, the nostalgia of the space. Okay. So this particular project was started as a nostalgia trail, and this is a fangirls trail of libraries in Madras. It is not. We are not just going to talk about the historic libraries, which is going to be. So I promised to finish in exactly 25 minutes, and then we'll be looking at some pictures and some artwork on the different libraries of Madras. So let me begin with sharing. The screen is visible now. Yeah, the screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So whenever we talk about libraries of Madras, we can divide them into pre-independence, post-independence, and after 1980. But whenever with these trails, if you want to segregate it area-wise and all that, you can probably divide it into 14 zones where there is a main crux library and then a series of smaller libraries around. So before I start, let me tell you how this was divided. This was not just based on the history of the library, but also based on the usage and also the number of people visiting the library. So these are the major central points, and I'll be sharing these maps earlier around later to the audience. So this is just a tryout of different libraries in Madras and how they play a major role in what we know as Madras today. So let me go back a little bit and talk to you about the College of Fort St. George, where there was an actual change which gave way to the the library culture of Madras. So when the Britishers or the colonial power, they wanted to study a lot about the culture, the education system, history, anthropology, whatnot. They wanted to clearly know about the different aspects of people they are dealing with. So there were a lot of studies which were going on. So they decided to have the College of Fort St. George in a village called Nungambakkam. And they once the college started, they had a lot of exhibits, they had a lot of artifacts, they had a lot of resources and all that. So particularly for the resources, a library was constructed in early 1900s, which was the Madras Literary Society Library, which is still functioning. And so the Madras Literary Society was started in the early 1900s. But what is the connection between one historic library in the city and how? So is the it says the screen share is paused. Is it visible now? The screen share is visible. Okay. So when we talk about the Madras Literary Society, how the college led way to the libraries, and then the college led way to the museum, and so many other aspects because the students had. Is the screen visible, Arya?
Sorry, could you just retry sharing your screen because it's only half visible now?
Oh, because whenever I try to add, it says the host has to accept. So that keeps telling it again and again. Or I'll talk now and then we can add the images later. Can you see it now? Because every time there is a host permission coming in.
Not really.
Uh, Okay, then probably I'll put the pictures to the end. So I'll just finish it and then I'll go back to the chart.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. So that's the Madras Literary Society, and then the collection of books, the artifacts, everything started from a college collection. But if there are a lot of questions when we take kids on the tail, oh, so you say Madras Literary Society is the first library of Madras? No, there has been a lot of other libraries, other private collections, and then there has been record rooms in a lot of offices. There has been a lot of repositories of different kinds of books, gazetteers, and all those records were saved. All that was there. And if you take temples, every temple has a set of books, has a set of religious texts. And if you take churches, there are church records, and then there are different books related to that. So what we will be seeing today. So when we look at Madras Literary Society as a library as we know today, I think that is where the context fits in. And it is just like every time there is a connection between Madras and Madras Literary Society, they always tend to forget the connection between the College of Fort St. George and Madras. It was because of the college is called the College Road, and it was because of the college Madras Literary Society came into picture. And uh, yeah, so that was one aspect of it. And then when we look at the movement of libraries, what are the different other libraries which are there, and why should we even talk about these libraries when there are so many other uh, uh, information, so everything available online is because of the Arya. Can we try the images now? Yeah. Just see if that is working. Is it working now?
There's still some, yeah, works now. Yeah, perfect.
Works? Yeah, okay, I hope, yeah. So this is a picture of the Madras Literary Society from 1980. So we'll be looking at some images of these libraries. And this was a rare book exhibition, which was from 1975. And then Goshen Library is one of the oldest libraries in Chennai, which is also again still functioning. It is in Chindagari Pet. But I really wanted to talk about this particular library, which you see here. Yeah, I don't know if we can take questions, but does, do any of you know what library is this or where it was located? And because whenever we speak about libraries, this particular library doesn't come into our picture. You can probably put it in the chat box if there is a point. So after MLS, I wanted to start with this not so old library, which was started in 1980. This is the Thamarai Nilayam Library, which was again in the DPI campus. This design was inspired by the Madras Literary Society's design. And for those who have visited MLS, it is a two-rack structure. So when you look at this is actually 10 times this side and 3 times on the frontage. So this was a place we used to visit in the library trails, but which is not there anymore. This had a lot of textbooks, a lot of government-related records, school books, and since it was in the DPI, this was a repository of so much amazing books for children and all that. Why I wanted to start from that to this is there are other libraries. Generally, we look at libraries as an institution, but there are other places in the government and there are other record rooms and all that which have a very interesting character. Like every time we went to this place, there was something new to explore, and every other rack, the lighting of it, the different kind of people we met there. We met teachers there. We met a lot of poets there. We met a lot of people who just came to understand, okay, I'm here to check a textbook from 1932. So what you see here is the Thamarai Nilayam record room, which was in the DPI, which technically is not in any library it is, but it is one of the most interesting structures which we have come across. So some more pictures. And then the next one would be the Adyar Library or the Adyar Research Library. And then we don't have pictures of all the libraries which you see here. And then you may also, we will look at the timeline specifically at the end. But I'm just going through different libraries which people are more familiar with and then not so familiar with. So this is the Adyar Library. And then the TN Archives is another place which we don't technically associate or we don't think about when we think TN Archives as a library. But this is again a treasure trove of lot of amazing information. And these are pictures again during one of the library trails. And they have records, you name it, they have the Madras Almanacs, the Madras Information Records, anything on Madras records, you can find it here. Also the geos, and then like once we visited, there was a person restoring the different records signed in a particular timeline, and then there was a signature of M.G. Ramchandran, our ex-chief minister's signature was got it. So these spaces, which we don't generally associate with libraries, also play a major role in what we think when we think about books, records, and libraries. And then also, I don't know how many of you have visited the Madras University Library. This is a picture when they were segregating. That is why you see a lot of books. This is again an important structure. But like Sujata ma'am mentioned in the starting, there is a beautiful connect between book cataloging, book referencing. Because whenever we talk about libraries, referencing and cataloging plays a major role. And by major role, I mean because anyone can go inside a library and then they have to take a book and then they have to understand the different aspects of it and then ask the librarian to pick the book. So for that, an important part which is required is the cataloging system. So cataloging books was always regarded, I mean, we were using a lot of American system, we were using British systems. So Ranganathan sir, he kind of put together a system which is very specific for the Indian context. And today, the Library Day is also celebrated in his honor. So Madras University Library, even though it's not a public access library in a university library, the place as it is connected with Madras, and it is something which we should be proud of. We have had a lot of visitors who specifically asked for a trail about Ranganathan sir, his work, and what is a catalog and all that. So his books are a treasure trove, and he always believed that books are for everybody. Again, the Adyar Research Library, one of the interior views, and how that fits in a context even now. Okay, this is the Mohammedan Library, started in 1850. They have a lot of important records and again archives and all that. We would have crossed this road so many times, but it's just a blink and miss. And most of the time, we visit another beautiful library which finds itself an important part in the history of Madras. Yeah, and then coming back to the Panimara Library. Okay, again, the timeline swap is because it is like we are moving towards different libraries in Madras. I think when I share the map, it will be more clearer. So talking about the Panimara Library, it has undergone a lot of different usages. I just put three, and sorry about the images. Due to the lockdown, we were not able to go again, take better pictures. So we've just put together pictures which we had. So was it a library from the beginning? And whenever we say Kanimara Library, we always associate with the new section, which is down completely air conditioned, with an online cataloging system. A lot of people studying for IAS, ITS, exam preparation, and lot of it. But something which we miss a lot of time is the old section, which is in the second floor. What is the roots of this particular building? This was not always the library building. This was once the collector's kacheri, which means the collector's office. And then later, and then for a period of time, it was also a place where performances were held. And then it became a place where the exhibits were kept. And then later it became a library. And what is more fascinating is the architecture of the place. You can see every other colored glass window or the details which you see there is not repetitive. So every detail, every point is not repeated. Like I said before, these most of these buildings or most of these trails which we do are based on nostalgia, because we have experts in history who talk about how it evolved. So I'm just giving you a brief through the history, but the major point is how important nostalgia plays here, because we had visitors who are between 85 and 90 who came with us to the trail and explained that how every time after college they would just go sit on the top reading hall, and then they would forget what books they have come to read and just enjoy the overall space. And the chairs, if you see, it is actually a curved set of chairs which you can find there in the reading room. Again, this works with pre-permission. You have to get permission prior to enter the library. And this is another wonderful space in the city which we generally don't associate with. We always, when we think of Kanimara, we think about the new section which is below. Okay, and then the Ranade Library. Ranade Library is again, like Sujata ma'am was telling in the beginning, whenever we say library, we always think about something which is very silent. Or the next question is, are libraries silent spaces? What is the essence or what is the intent of a library? Is it supposed to ignite your mind and make you realize a lot of things? Or libraries are a place where you can learn a lot of things? So like we were talking in a discussion today morning, libraries are places which opens out our mind, which again contradicts the fact that libraries are a silent spaces. So Ranade Library in Malapur is another important aspect, another important library which we don't generally talk about. The South Indian National Association Ranade Library, you can see here, this is an artist rendering of the library. And then whenever we talk about historic libraries, so I'll go back to the map. When we go back to the map, this is not in any order of importance. This is in order of how the trail can be, or how can you visit the different libraries. I think we spoke about MLS, we spoke about TN Archives, and also the Archaeological Survey of India Library. That is again with permission you can visit that. The Goshen Hall, and then Devanaya Pavanar Library in Anna Salai. Again, a lot of us know about the British Council Library which is inside, but Devanaya Pavanar Library is not something we generally talk about. But this is again a treasure trove of the city. For example, when you look at, it's the screen visible area. It says paused.
It's visible.
Okay. Because it said paused. Sorry. Yeah. So again, Devanaya Pavanar Library, we had around 30 to 40 respondents who mentioned that it was a library they would look forward to go every time. And for this particular map, 5 to 6 years before, we were able to see the Henry Davidson now vestiges of Madras in this very library. And that was another starting of, we don't realize the importance of these libraries which are there. Mohammedan Public Library, the Government Oriental Manuscript Library, which has a lot of treasure trove of information in terms of manuscripts, in terms of details, in terms of different knowledge sharing reports and all that. And then we spoke about the University of Madras Library, and then the Adyar Research Library, the Uve Swaminathan Iyer Library, the Kalakshetra, the Rojamuttaya Library, again, a place where you can find archives in pristine condition, preserved, and for access to different scholars. And then the CP Ramaswamy Iyer Foundation Library, who again have 55,000 plus books. And each of these libraries, again, like I said, these are not the full list of libraries. These are like prime points from which you can visit the other libraries. So here are some of the different libraries which we have listed. So the few of it are public access, few of it are not so public access. You can give permission and visit the libraries. But one. But the important part here lies in these libraries, the government libraries, local library authority libraries, which are there around the city, and every nook and corner. Like while typing this out, we realize that every pin code, if you take, there is one library which will be there every time. So talking about these local libraries, one, yes, is there something, Arya? I heard. Okay. So it is important to talk about the library movement and how library movement in Tamil Nadu. There was a time when the Library Act was passed, and also it is an important movement. And whenever we talk about the library movement, it is not just about creating physical spaces, it is about how it made libraries reach a lot of schools. Libraries reach a lot, I mean, a lot of children were able to access books, a lot of children were able to access records, a lot of children were able to get access to books which they would not. Yeah. Okay. A lot of children were able to get access to books. And another important part, that is the reason why you see a lot of libraries in government schools, and also these security of the libraries and why libraries and reading habits are important. Another important facet is the republication of lot of encyclopedias in Tamil. It came like a book set in Tamil with different aspects in science. I was in the Noon Padipagam or the Karagam publication. So they had a lot of, so both of them published a lot of books. And each of these came in like a set, like a library set, which was distributed widely. And then there is a researcher who's specifically working, called Nia, working on how these books were designed, what were the different aspects of it, what was there in their mind when they designed these books. So it is not just the historic libraries of Madras, the library movement also played a major role in how we perceive libraries in Madras and how we perceive the different aspects of reading in Madras. So, let me go back to. So, what are the other libraries we see here, and what are the different? Is this visible now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we spoke about the old libraries, historic libraries, and all that, but I also felt the different library movement now which is happening is also very important. So this is a library called the Balubhandra Library, which has a lot of workshops happening, which has a lot of events happening. And then the Kogai Library is another one which has a lot of events, and both of these are free libraries. And then are we just talking about physical existence of a library? So all the trail of images which you would be seeing from there, from either Dulkul or Aware or the Akarma Foundation, all these libraries doesn't necessarily have a physical tangible space. They are all moving libraries. See, these are three are just examples. There are so many other libraries like this which are working in Chennai and in Tamil Nadu. Since it is specifically about Madras, I'm showing you images. Like, how do you make books reach to children? So these are some of the pictures from the workshops and how the moving library kind of affects. So that is a book reading session. And I think what is more important is how we take books and how we make sure it reaches a lot of people. And this is not just about, so whenever we speak about history, it is not just about how libraries were. It is important to understand how libraries are now and what we need to do as people in Madras to understand, acknowledge, and start, because like we still speak about the library movement years ago. What can we do now to understand the context of where we are and where we can go ahead? So I think there are a lot of questions which are there are a lot of questions which are coming in. Okay. So this is the world of the different libraries in Madras, and when Sujata ma'am gave this opportunity to talk about libraries in Madras, I was very specific. We not only have to talk about the historic libraries, but also the spectrum of different libraries around. And there is one small part which I didn't cover in whatever we are talking, the libraries which we have lost. So again, it was a small survey which we carried on, and people, whenever we spoke to seniors in Ananagar, they always spoke about the Lily Learning Library, which is not there anymore, and then the Anugraha Library, which is not there anymore, Elmore Library. So whenever we speak about libraries, we don't speak about these small micro spaces which every street has, which every place has. I think when we, as much as we want to relish in nostalgia and in historic libraries, it is important to support the district libraries, the local libraries, which came about because of the library movement. And library movement is one of the most successful ones in Tamil Nadu. And the reason a lot of them got access to books, a lot of us got access to books. And it is important that the historic connect, knowing about the historic connect, it is our responsibility to carry on the legacy of the library as a movement, from library movement to library as a movement, and take memberships, understanding how a library works and the different aspects of it. So this is like an overview of what I tried to put together. So like I said, this is like a tour of different libraries, and I'm so sorry if there was a problem with the view or with the images and all that. So I really wanted this to be like a discussion where I would love to get questions from you about the map or the library trail or anything about the historic libraries. Would love to answer. So if there are any questions, please you can put in the chat box.
Ma'am,
Yes.
Connemara Library is the first library in Chennai, right, ma'am?
Kanimara Library is not the first library in Chennai. Like I said, the College of Fort St. George, which was in, I mean, that is why College Road is called College Road, the first college of the British. They had a lot of books. They had a lot of, sorry? Was I on unmute? I mean, mute for a long time. Okay. So the oldest library is the Madras Literary Society. So when Kanimara was started, the geological collections from the Madras Literary Society was given to initiate the new library process. So Madras Literary Society is the oldest one. Yeah. I don't know who asked the question, but yeah, that was an important point. And any other questions? Really, it was, see, this was to make us understand what was there before, what are we missing, and what we can do for what we can look forward to in making the library movement possible. So any other questions?
Ma'am, do they
Yes.
give? I mean, do we have to get permission before going to Kanimara Library? Because I went like twice, but we weren't allowed to the old building. We saw only
Okay.
the new one.
Okay, this is another aspect I really wanted to touch on. Most of the time, we always assume that libraries are stage places where we are not given access to. The thing is, any historic structures need a lot of attention. Any historic libraries needs a lot of time to preserve their books, take care of it, and preserve it in a particular condition to make it accessible to for a longer time. So that's why the access to the Kanimara old section, right? Old section is restricted, but it is not closed. So with prior permission, you can visit it. They also open it 3 days every year, World Book Day, April month, where you can visit the library. It is just for keeping the book safer. So with permission, you can visit. But if you see in the image, there was a waiting hall, right? You can wait in the waiting hall. They will bring the books which you actually request for.
Okay, I just wanted to see how the architecture is inside. So I thought maybe I'll go inside because I saw it in pictures, but I have never seen it in real. So I thought
Okay, so
maybe I'll just go have a look.
okay,
So
next time when there is a when they open it out to public, we'll definitely put it out, and you can definitely have a look at it. Thank you,
thank you.
Auntie.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, this is
Yes.
Lorit. This is Lorit. I have a doubt. So, as
Yes.
you told, in College Road, there was a first college by the British. So,
Yes.
did they coin the term when, like you told, they had so many books there? So, did they
Hmm.
coin the term like library that time itself? Like
Okay.
in they call it a library, or
Okay. Okay, thank you. It was in the college building, and from the college building, they had a small library, which was later due to the, with the different collections, the collections grew. So for storing the different huge collection of the book, they started a separate building, which was the Madras Literary Society, the Madras Literary Society Library, specifically for that. So it was the College of Fort St. George building, and this was a separate entity. I think it's clear
Okay,
now,
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Lorit. Yes.
Ma'am, then which one is the first library in Chennai?
Your voice is breaking, please. Can you repeat?
Ma'am, this is Hariharan. May I know which is
Yes.
the library then in Chennai?
Okay, the Madras Literary Society Library is the oldest in Chennai. I mean, as per the, if you take the colonial history, yes. But like I said, almost all the temples had a repository of books. The churches had a lot of records. The fort, when the officers came here, they had a collection of books and all that. But library, as we see, as a physical entity, this was the first.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I think your question was also in the chat box. Which one is older, Kanimara or Madras Literary Society? Madras Literary Society, yes, that's the answer. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one question in the chat box from
Yes.
someone called Lorit.
Oh, I
He
think, yeah, Lorit was the person. He just asked the question, no? Lorit's MacBook.
Yes, ma'am. I'm done. I'm done.
Yes, he just asked. Any other questions? And then I have a message in my phone saying that why should we know about modern libraries when there is a wealth of historic libraries in the cities? Is there a need for new libraries? For this question, my answer would be definitely we need more libraries. We need, yeah, yes, please. Yeah, someone asked a question, right? Yeah, please. Hello?
Go ahead, Thirupurasundari.
No, there was a question. Okay. So that particular question, like why should, when we have wealth of historic libraries, why should we have new libraries? I think access to book is a very important part. And as much as we talk about history, we should talk about new libraries. Like the INTACH Chennai library is also a wealth of so much information. And I think every space needs a library, and I think a lot of schools should have a library. And as much as we talk about historic libraries, we also need to have newer libraries as well. Moving libraries in buses and autos, like moving exhibits, that is also an important part. Any other questions? Okay. Ma'am, will the collection of books be exchanged with other libraries, or it will be there in the same library forever? Okay, that's a very strong question. There is a concept called book exchange between libraries, or it is also called book swapping. It does not happen in a lot of libraries. Like I said, modern libraries, so it depends on the collection of the library. For example, there are four important policies when we talk about library: the access policy, the preservation policy, and then the in case of emergency, what, like in terms of any disaster, what are we taking care of? That is the third part. Like Morning Sundar sir from RMR was talking about it. So it depends on the collection we have. What is the collection, where, how it should be protected and all that. So it depends on that. But there is something called swapping and book exchange in a lot of libraries. Yes, that's a good question. Can you tell us the exact year which the other something like that, exact year till, and does the collection of books exchange with library? Exact year till which the other side was the collector. The other side, you mean you're talking about the Kanimara campus, right? So that's a very different timeline. It will be definitely before 1819. So I'll give you the exact year. So that was before that. Any other? Yes.
Do we have libraries in Chennai which do digital lending?
Digital lending. Okay, that's a very good question, sir. There are a lot of initiatives being taken for digital lending libraries. but there is no, I mean, it has not started yet. There are no digital lending libraries. I wish there are more digital lending, but as of now, a lot of them are taking efforts to work on that. But as of now, there isn't any digital lending for libraries. But if we go to the library, we can actually access it. Or like, for example, when you take RMRL, you go, you ask for a particular record. If it is a very old book or if it is to be taken care of, they give access to the e-copy or the online copy. But we have to go and physically be present there to take over. There is no, I wish there is, that's an important question. I think that's the next step where libraries should be heading to.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Actually,
Yes.
so these apps like Kindle app for the mobile phone and the Juggernaut app, and there are so many apps. So can we call them as the digital lending libraries? Because
Okay.
we can have a
Okay.
free subscription.
Okay, digital lending library. Okay, again, it depends on, I think, important, right? From a physical space, there is a digital space now. Physical space is a library, digital space, like even like movies, right? Watching movie in a theater, and then you have Netflix, Amazon, and all that. I think it is more to do with an experience of the space and what it gives us. So we can't call them exactly libraries, but they are they are occupying the digital uh, not response, digital equivalent of a library. That's how I would like to call it, because digital equivalent of a library, but you can call it a library. But I think physical library is more about the experience of how it looks, and the atmosphere, the kind of people we meet. It is not just a place for so like you would have seen in the brief, browse, borrow, read, and return. So whenever where there is, we take children, we say browse. You browse the books, you browse the history of the place, borrow the ideas, and then borrow the books. Read, understand what is there, understand what is not told also, and then return. Return to the library, return to your society, do something. But that return
Are you
is
going
the
to the
most
beach? Huh?
important. Sorry,
Beach.
I don't hear it, sir. Okay. So when we talk about browse, borrow, read, and return, we generally say browse, borrow, read is important as a reader. Returning the book is very important to the library, but it is also returning back to the space, returning back to the society, understanding. And like you mentioned, digital, yes, but the experience which a library gives, the atmosphere of it, the interaction you have with the librarian. Imagine someone understanding the choice of your book, choice of your author, that discussion, that you get to meet like-minded people, you get to meet and discuss ideas, and you try to understand the library as a space itself. So it is a digital equivalent of a library, but not a library as such. Yes. And any other questions?
Thank you, mom.
Yeah, thank you.
There are two other questions in the chat box here, and then we have a few questions on YouTube as well.
Okay, ma'am, are the rare collection available? Is that question? Ma'am, are the rare collections available at the library website? It depends on which library you're talking about, Aditya. A few libraries have their, like the map I was telling you, right? We try to put this map together, like 175 maps, libraries of Madras, because at map we are trying to point out where rare collections are available online, where it is not available online, restriction procedures and all that. So I would need all your inputs to understand, or if you have a library which you felt you missed or which is lost, that can be mentioned also. So it depends on the library. If that's your question, are the rare collection available at the library website? Depends on the book. Ma'am, does famous libraries exchange? I think, Arya, the questions are, that's all. You can read out the YouTube questions.
Okay. Kalyani Narayan asks, in this digital age, how are libraries reinventing themselves to serve the society?
Okay, reinventing, I feel it's very important. Can I share the screen, Arya? Is it possible?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Okay, this is a library in, I mean, not exactly a fixture library, but this was with the Karma Foundation when they took a set of books and went to the children, taught crafts to them, and shared the different books to them, magazines to them, and all that. You can see how that is happening, right? I think whatever you say, digital, cyberspace, anything, the joy of holding a book and reading. So I think this is also a time when uh, libraries are reinventing in terms of human resource, having a lot of events, having a lot of interactions, and being inclusive is another important thing. Is what I feel. The space should be inclusive. It should be accessible. Having events which are sign language accessible, and the braille book sections. Like when I speak about braille book, I think I did miss mentioning about the Anna Sanitary Library, which is one of the biggest repository of American, and they have a small braille session as well. So by reinventing, what are we exactly talking about? How are we going to make the books reach the children? So these are all some of the ways different libraries are trying to reach children, reach kids in terms of. But again, if you ask me whether we should completely not go digital, no. We need digital copies of different rare books which we have, because not all rare books can be handled by hand. So that digital repository is also required, but there should be a balance. Like whenever you see artwork like this inspired by books, this can never be replaced in digital format. So reinventing in terms of people interaction, reinventing in terms of digital interaction, both of it is very important. I think that is when you need a lot of talk, you need a lot of interaction, you need a lot of understanding, you need that proper balance of digital and that human touch. And what was the other question? One was this.
Yeah. So then we have Dhruva asking,
Yes.
are there any articles of yours published on the Libraries of Madras in any journal, magazine, or blog that you can share?
I think what we can do is I will send this PDF of libraries of Madras, the entire list. Whoever has registered or whoever is interested, you can mail it to them if that's okay. If that's okay, yeah. We're also making like a small booklet area wise where, like, okay, you say I'm from Nungambakkam. What are the different libraries I can access, which are historic, which are archival, which are for kids, which are for others. So that can be shared. Yes, definitely. And you can find it in our Facebook page, the maps and all that. It's all uploaded. But PDF, you can send it to everybody.
Sure. So if anybody wants this PDF, please send us a mail to intachchennai@gmail.com. We then have Uma Balu asking, there are private collections. People may not be willing to lend them, but
Okay.
read and take notes. How can
Okay.
such facilities be put to use?
Mm.
How do we reach out to students or other interested people?
Okay, that is one aspect of libraries which we didn't touch in the whole conversation, is about private collections or private library or people who have procured books over their lifetime. I think it is also the choice the particular collector or the person who collects the book makes, whether to make it accessible or not. But I think at one point you really need to share your wealth of books to everybody else. But it depends on, like, to answer the question, it depends on what is the kind of research. If their research is specifically Madras related, or if their research is Sangam literature, then there are few individuals who have a lot of collections about that. They can be pointed in that they can be pointed out to those different people who collect rare books, and that can be accessed. But there is no like a list or something where we can directly find. But there are people who do that, and I think it is also because. Like again, I'm going back to this: browse, borrow, read, return. We do the first three things. The last part of returning the book is some habit which I don't know. Not many get the hang of it. You give a book and then you don't get it back. That happens to libraries, that happens to individuals. And I think if there are book lovers here or people from the libraries, you will definitely get my point. And also talking about digital, I should definitely mention about the Madras Music Academy Library, which I read about a year back, digitizing their collection. I think that is a very, very important work. And the digital space is very important. But when you talk about physical books, we should understand that when we lend a book, we should definitely give that book back. I think browse, borrow, read, and return. The fourth part is very important for libraries and people who collect, and that's why people are a little scared to share their books or give copies of it, or that thing happens. See, I have lost a lot of books, and I'm sure a lot of you would have lost a lot of books too. Yeah.
I'd like to
Yes.
just share at this point that
Yes, ma'am.
INTACH Chennai chapter has its own small library, and
Yes.
we skip the stage of borrow. So there's no, we just browse and read at the space and behind there. So there's no borrow or return. But of course, when things are a little better. So
Yes.
if anybody is interested in any aspect of heritage that we might have in our collection, most welcome to, mail us and come over at a convenient time during working hours on Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 5:30, and on Saturdays, 9:30 to 1:30. Anytime you're welcome, and you can come and refer whatever information we have on documented history. We have listed several buildings of Chennai, the heritage of Chennai. The first phase was about 600 buildings, which has been brought out in the Architectural Guide Heritage book. And then second phase of listing as well. Plus, there are other books on conservation and how to remove plants and tree growth from buildings, and how to use lime, how to use timber. So many various aspects of heritage, conservation, preservation, laws related to heritage, management of heritage, and all these other aspects. So any of you are welcome during working hours when things are better, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. If there is any books you need to refer on conservation of buildings and heritage, INTACH library is a wonderful resource. So please make use of it. And then also about the digital space and cyberspace, which Balaji sir asked that particular questions. What we are trying to do in Madras Literary Society for the past 1 month is know MLS in 30 days, where we're putting out contents of few of the books and few of the aspects of MLS as infographics, art, and letters, which people can access to, but not the whole set of books, but like a reader's review or a member's review of it. I think on a longer run, that digital lending in libraries also to be done, not in small aspects, but the major part. That is one thing I wanted to mention as well. And I think it's the right time when libraries, like libraries of Madras, come together to form, because libraries are not just reading spaces. They are a space. They can have a huge impact in the cultural space. They can be actually performing spaces. They can be places where we can learn and share, and we can understand books. We can read books. We can. So that is one additional point I wanted to mention. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have one more question on YouTube. Dhruva asks, would you say Amazon Prime and Netflix are modern versions of a digital video library?
Digital video library. Okay. That's if that okay, if that question is about movies, I think uh, I would say for me, a movie is an experience. So I'm a completely theater person. Uh, but this is also a digital version of, like I said, it is not an equivalent for, I mean, not a library, but a digital equivalent of a library. And I think when we spoke about these nostalgia and small lending libraries, when we collect social history data of people and their experiences of Madras in 70s, 80s, and 90s, they also talk about these cassette lending libraries. If someone has points about that, I would love to hear also. Like video cassette lending libraries, and then CD lending libraries, cassette lending libraries, and they had very fond memories of that, and how they would take 5 cassettes, 6 cassettes, fix up a cable, and then watch movies at home. And then it became to LD, Laserdisc, the bigger one, and then CDs. And then now that entire set of space is not there. So if any of you have memories of those libraries, I think that's a very good point, which got me reminded of this. The cassette lending libraries, the CD lending libraries. I think that entire thought is not there. But whenever we speak to people about the memories in 70s, 80s, and 90s, this always comes. This is one space we missed. We used to take few miss, and I think this experience is something that browsing was fun for them, and also that human interaction. But again, that was off from the question. But to answer your question, yes, it is a digital equivalent. But I think watching movie in a theater, watching a theater performance in live, watching a stand-up comedy in live, watching a dance performance in live, going to a library live, going to a restaurant and eating than a takeaway. I think it is all about, there is comfort, there is everything, but the actual space is more about how you experience the particular entity. I think, yeah, that went off as a big answer, but that was my point. Any other questions?
Hariharan asks, from a view of rare books, is digital or hard copy better?
It's digital or it depends on what is the kind of research you're
Sorry,
doing.
may I also request you to lift up your mic, please?
Okay, can you hear it now? Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, it depends on what is the kind of research which you are doing. Most of the time, the digital copy is there, but there is something called primary source, the root of it. For example, the Madras Journal of Literature and Science, the primary source is the Madras Literary Society. So there are a lot of researchers who would like to come and see the first copies to understand what it was, how, where it is placed, and all that. But again, it depends on what is the kind of research you're doing and what is the kind of books you want to access to. And also there are researchers who work on paper conservation, types of paper, types of digital, like there was a researcher who came to Madras Literary Society. His research was specifically to understand how the photographic paper evolved over time, or how the thickness evolved over time. So for him, he really needs to see the old copies. But of course, we didn't have much books on that context. We guided him to the other libraries which focus on that. But I wanted to mention this point because what is your specific point of research? What is your topic? It depends on that. But most of the copies are digitally available, and a lot of libraries are doing amazing work on that also. And anything else? Any other questions in YouTube or here? Can't hear you properly. Please hold the mic. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes. Any other points? Or you have any memories of nostalgic memories of Madras libraries which are lost? Anything which I missed to cover over here? Any one particular library? No, this should have found your place. Found a place here. If you have any points, please, I would be happy to get your feedback. It was a very short time where I have to run through back and forth of centuries to understand, to cover a lot of libraries. Yes. Any other questions too?
Ma'am?
Yes. Yes, please.
You spoke about the moving libraries.
Yes.
Was that implemented anywhere in Chennai or Tamil Nadu?
There are a lot of moving libraries, your name, Aarti. There are a lot of moving libraries, Aarti. A lot of NGOs, uh, uh, lot of individuals, they just carry a load of books in their backpacks or auto and cars and jeeps, and then they go and supply. I just mentioned about three. One is the Dulka Library, one is the Akama Foundation's library, and the third one being Aware Library. But there are others too. For example, the Madras Literary Society have did a outreach with the Hobart School, where we kind of shared our resources, and our committee members, who are wonderful storytellers, also participated and spoke to the children. I think moving library is something very, very important for the access of book. And we are specifically talking about Madras here, but in lot of other places too, this moving library concept is happening. And I think anyone can take that beautiful initiative. Like, for example, all the books you see here are a part of the moving library, which we have every month and every fourth week. We just take a set of books, we just go to one street corner, sit, talk to the people, auto anas, kukarakas, everyone just sit, talk about one book, get their opinion on different books, what were they reading and all that, just to understand to these. So, but moving libraries are important. You can actually start one in your own street as well. You don't need a truckload of book. You just need a book and a interested person to reach a lot of minds.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
We have one more question. Is the environment in which the
Any other
library...
questions?
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
The environment in which the library is present influence the reader map? That's a very important question. Yes, it does. Every, like, you say a space, it doesn't mean four walls alone. A space is something which is in our head too. In Tamil, if you say space, it means a physical space, and belly, which means something which is around you. Give me space, we say that, right? Give me some space. So space is not just what is around, it is like something here also. Definitely a space influences how the space is, the height of your walls, the color, the different, the color of your walls, the ventilation, the light, the acoustics, the people you meet in a space, the people who take care of the place, your first visit to a place, that influences. And I think that is very, very important. Of course, yes, yeah, it does. The environment influences the reader. Definitely, that's very important. Like few school libraries, people say, no, I don't go to the library because it feels very close. Some people say they just run to the library. Okay, it depends on how you perceive the space and yeah, the space here. Anyone else? Any other questions? Did I miss out any questions? Please point out so that. And then Nalini Thakur ma'am says, thank you, dears. Thank you, ma'am. And ma'am was a part of our Kanimara Library Tales, I think, last year. Thank you, ma'am. Can you please? Okay. Any other questions? And there are these wonderful articles and YouTube videos where historians had spoken about the timeline of libraries in Madras. Please, you can. I will share some links also. You can see what we looked at is the today is the context between historic libraries present and what we can do further. So, if you're looking at history point of view, also I will answer few questions, but I'll share few links where you can go and look at it in detail. This particular map is like for every area. Whoever wants to visit a library or a particular context, how do they find ways? So that is how this particular map is designed. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So any other comments or any other points, please feel free to ask questions. And Sujata ma'am, I should tell you, I love the bookshelves behind you today.
Okay.
Yes.
So if there are no other questions,
Yes, ma'am. I don't think so. I think Arya can check if there is anything in YouTube. Otherwise, here I think I have answered all the questions.
Yes, I think we've answered them all.
Yeah.
we're very happy to have with us Mr. Jagdish today, who's been the former director of American Library in Chennai for over 37 years. And he was also the chief librarian at the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore and is currently the librarian at the Music Academy, Chennai. May I invite Mr. Jagdish to share with us his observations, please? Mr. Jagdish?
Ma'am, I think we have to unmute, sir. Arya, can you unmute, sir?
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It is very clear, sir. We can hear you.
Very clear. Okay. That's thank you for this opportunity, and it's
So
a very good.
Your video is off, sir.
Video is off.
Amma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how about now?
I think Arya நீங்க தான் வந்து ஆன் பண்ணனும்னு நினைக்கிறேன் வீடியோ. இப்போ வந்துருச்சு sir. Yes.
வந்துருச்சா?
வந்துருச்சு.
Okay.
Yes sir. Take care. Yes.
Okay. I'm very grateful to the INTACH and Mrs. Tara Murali for getting me here in this very informative. And your talk was quite informative about the sort of historical libraries and then which are the first, and there are so many other things. The whole survey was sort of highlighting what each library has. Basically, of course, American libraries was one of the older libraries where a lot of interaction between the Britishers and the Americans, the local government took place. So that's one of the points. But the thing I want to stress, it is a very useful presentation for the people who have not visited these libraries, first of all. And also the type of service which is available in these libraries is very important. Before that, I would like to say today is the Librarians Day and Dr. S.R. Ranganathan's birthday, the father of library science in India. And not only in India, but he was very famous in all over the world. But the concept of his concept of libraries was there were, if I don't know, many of you may not know, there were 5 laws he just framed and said. I can just read out those 5 laws. Which were: the first law is the books are for use. The second one is every reader his or her book. Every book its reader. Save the time of the reader. This is a very important, crucial point when research is taking place, and also the question of saving the time of the reader, giving the right information is very important. The last one being the library is a growing organism. So the library grows with its own. Hello.
Yes sir, we can hear you sir. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
the library grows with resources and other informative materials. What you have said, I think in each of the libraries which you have focused has a specialized collection. Like, it happens. So when I want to do something on Sangam literature, I would probably go to RMR library and have a lot of information from there. On RMR library, the Raja Mutaya library, which is an example of a personal library collection, which is, really very resourceful, and then digitization, everything has taken place. I don't want to take much of time because we've already on this thing. But so I think what I want to focus here is whatever you have said. The resources and the access is a highly important issue. Many of the libraries, what happens is they don't give access. So there are either restricted access, or you can't, or you have to come to somebody. This type of answers you get in the library. But that is one of the important aspects of access. And now what has happened is the open access revolution has taken place. So there are a lot of materials which are available on the open access platform, and some of it may be included in the collections which are there in these libraries which you have mentioned. The question is the access. So I want to only focus on the access point, and come to the current libraries. Somebody asked a question about how are libraries changing. The question of changing that, like as I said, the 5 laws of libraries are still relevant to this day. The concept of a library is all the same as far as service is concerned. See, I for one would vote for the service irrespective of the collection they have. And in fact, somebody asked a question about resources, exchange of resources. See, what has happened is on that point, there is a sharing, sharing aspect of library resources is there, and it also institutional, sharing has come up already. So one institute, especially this happens in the digital platform. So when the digital platform, institutional collections are all shared based on some agreements, etc., etc. That's okay. So the main point I would like to focus here is that here libraries are changing. Their collections are changing, and the way they give service is also changing. See, basically, what has happened is, in fact, I was involved in so many other rebuilding libraries in a few projects, where as you rightly mentioned about the space for library is now changing. Inside a library, you don't see just a stack of books. It is a stack of computers or the charging points and things like that. So this is exactly what is happening in the current scenario, where they are giving more space for the technological access, where databases can be accessed. The other point I would like to make is you said return, for example, uh, uh, browse, borrow, read, and return. So it's a very important aspect. The return aspect is, I think, the community's responsibility as to how. In fact, in the United States, you have Friends of Library, where the Friends of Library concept is fantastic, and then they come into the library and then help and then make use of the help the library to a great extent. So this concept, I think, is very important here, where we can bring in the Friends of Library concept in the Indian scenario. Uh, um, as I said, in fact, one of the research which has been taken I don't know, there's a think tank called Pew Research Center, which does a lot of survey on these type of activities, where uh, uh, although they say that the attendance to libraries is diminishing, the access is more on the other side. So there is access to information. So how you give access is the very important situation. And these libraries are resources which you have mentioned are excellent for research, and how the children can be made to understand this situation. That is from the outreach. I'm next coming to the outreach point of view. So that is this is basically a librarian's responsibility, where not seeing the screen. Hello, are you all seeing my screen? Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, the last thing I would like to focus is on all these libraries. I'm not. I have visited some of the libraries which you have mentioned, but how they, many of the libraries, how they are reaching out to the people is one of the, in fact, important aspects. How they are actually promoting their resources to make effective use by the users. I think one of the important aspects of libraries, which I think is the users. Based on the requirements of the users, we have to build our collection and, of course, make use of the archival information, etc. You also mentioned about the Musical Academy Library, which, of course, we have digitized about approximately 200 books, which is available within the library. So this is where, when you come to the institutional resources sharing, then these things will come to a great help. This is exactly what I was just wanting to tell you. And I think this is, I think it's a good program which we had, and people who would be interested in going to libraries would do their research first, and what the specific library is able to give us, and then probably start working on that. So if any, I think this is what I wanted to say, that the libraries concept of Ranganathan is still relevant in the current technology age, and the libraries are changing to suit the needs of the user in this age of technology. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. One point which Sir mentioned, friends of libraries, I think that's a very important point, sir, because for Madras Literary Society, we have volunteers coming in every Saturday, and we call them friends of MLS for a reason, because the books are catalogued, taken care of, events, everything is volunteer run. So I think Friends of Libraries is an important aspect, which I think every other library should. It is like taking ownership of the library and spreading the word. I think that's what libraries need. The members
Absolutely.
are, yeah, they spread the
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
And I think the role of a librarian, I think that's what came to my mind. I think it is also the role of the librarian, the
Absolutely.
positivity and the interaction will want the people to, like when you were
Yeah.
speaking, I think almost all of us want to visit the library because of the welcoming tone and the
Yeah.
different explanations you give. I think the role of the librarian is equally important in a library.
See,
That's
actually,
one
what
thing I
happens
want
is
to add.
there is a quality of information which you get when
Hmm.
once you interact with the librarian, because the librarian has an experience of making searches through the whatever material, either it is physical or electronic. See, now it is an electronic era where the librarians are trained in those searches possible. So what so happens an interaction between the user and the librarian. It is an excellent combination, and then the quality of information you get is something different. So
Definitely. I
this
think
is
this is.
the
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
Please.
this
Yes,
is
sir.
this
Yes,
is
sir.
exactly what I want to focus, because all these libraries where you have mentioned more about 20, 30 libraries which you mentioned, I think this is very important as to the interaction between the librarian and the user. What is it that the user is looking for, and how I can take this query into reality. So many a times it so happens the user may not have a clear cut concept of what he or she is looking for. So with the interaction at the library, it becomes clearer. So this is, I
Yes, sir.
think, a very important point. I think we have to focus on, and that is But the problem is now everybody is depending on Google, which is actually not a real big resource. Of course, it's a big resource, but there are other points which to be considered when once you go into the Google. So
Definitely, sir.
this is the confusion which we have: library or the Google.
Yes, sir. True.
That's exactly what is happening right now. But I would still go for a library where authentic information, accurate information is available.
Definitely. I think this is what we miss in the digital. Like I was answering a lot of questions about digital libraries and what is the difference. Are they equivalent to the? I think this
Yes,
interaction
sir.
with the librarian and the team which
Yeah,
functions in the library plays a major role. And I
absolutely.
think each of the libraries when we visited, I still have a fond memory of what was the first interaction with them. What was that
Correct.
point with them?
Exactly.
What is their?
Exactly.
How do they know all these members' name? How do they know the
Absolutely.
interest of each of the person? And I think
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
one point. And I
Yeah.
missed,
Yeah.
I missed one point when I was showing the presentation. I would like to thank Chandra Sekhan sir, Balu sir, Ramaswamy sir, Rajesh and Pratyaksha for the wonderful pictures of the different libraries which was there. And I think these people who are actually the friends of libraries, different libraries, who actually make the library more reachable to a lot of people. And Sujata ma'am, I should
Yeah.
really thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk at the World Library about number Madras libraries. And this was something which will definitely be of use to a lot of people. And I think more people visit the libraries. That will be the precise intent of this entire session.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Desi.
Thank you so much.
Thank. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and for the nice presentation. Yeah.
Soumya. Soumya, are you here? May I request Soumya? Tara, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Tara ma'am is on. unmuted now. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for a wonderful talk. And I think everybody learned a lot about the libraries. I'm so glad that you were able to do this on this special day, Librarians Day. And we all owe a debt of gratitude to Mr. S.R. Ranganathan, who really has set Madras or Chennai on the map of libraries. Thank you also, Jagdish, for your summing up. And I know I've known you for several years, and of your interest in libraries, books, and visitors to the library. I remember coming maybe 30 years ago to the USIS library, and how you always take the trouble to greet each and every visitor there, and make them feel welcome. And I think the contents of the library and the friendliness of the librarian and the the knowledge of the librarian on the books makes all the difference. Thank you all, and hope we can all make better use of the libraries once the pandemic, the threat of the pandemic is over. Until then, I think we should ensure that the books are kept in good condition. And if something needs to be done about that, I think we should all come together and see how to ensure that books are kept in good condition. With that, let me thank all of you. And if Sujata has anything more to say about our next programs, thank you.
I've already announced about the upcoming programs, but I'll just repeat it for the benefit of those who may not have taken that in. You can see what's on the screen. 13th, that's tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. is Swadeshi and Gandhi by V.R. Devika. She'll also cover the connection to Madras. And on the 20th, that's the following Thursday, will be Temples of Madras, especially for children, by Dr. Chitra Madhavan. And on the 27th, that's the next Thursday, at 5 p.m. will be the Heritage of Buckingham Canal by Venkatesh Ramakrishnan. And all of these are on Zoom, where the IDs are given on the screen, and there's no password required to access any of these talks. We welcome all of you to join us in the next 3 programs. And in the first week of September, we will be having a puppetry show by Hari Krishnan of Salem. And we encourage you to please, sort of take part in that and watch the program, especially because puppetry is a wonderful art that's been here for several decades and several centuries, and not in the mainstream currently, but we would like from INTACH Chennai chapter to bring it into the mainstream and bring it as part of everybody's daily life. So encourage you all to please join on September 3rd for the puppetry show as well. So thank you all for being here, and good night.